Oh boy, this is actually a pretty crazy interview here. Nina Turner, co-chair of the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign, always very inspirational, by the way. Always a joy to listen to her speak. She got into a bit of a fiery back and forth debate with Brooke Baldwin of CNN, who is clearly trying to pigeonhole her, clearly trying to get her to say what she wanted, tried to get her to spew propaganda. But listen, man, you guys are going to check this out here.
Nina Turner is the co-chair of the Bernie Sanders campaign. Nina, welcome.
Thanks, Brooke.
You just saw that clip. Your response to some of those lines last night.
Well, Senator Bernie Sanders is the front runner in this race, and it is very clear on all of the issues that matter to changing the material conditions of people in this country. Senator Bernie Sanders is on the right side. And Brooke, it just really boggles my mind to have people like Mr. Buttigieg and and Mr. Bloomberg sit up there and talk about how defending people who already have everything going for them in the system is the right way to go, and having Senator Sanders defend people who are on the bottom side of that doesn't make sense. You know, what Senator Sanders is fighting for, just plain and simple, and people want to call it democratic. He calls himself a democratic socialist. People want to make this a bad word, but the last time I checked, when President FDR was standing up for folks in the 1930s, he had to fight against the elites of his day as well. And so Senator Bernie Sanders is on that stage standing up for the everyday people of this country and fighting against the elites, including some of the elites on that stage last night.
I hear you, but since it is a word he uses to describe himself, you know, I want to focus on him. And there was just new polling because I think we do care about what the electorate thinks. You know, there's this new Wall Street Journal NBC News poll that found that 2/3 of the respondents said that they were actually uncomfortable with a socialist president.
But when you break it down, Brooke, you know, Shakespeare once said, "What's in a name? A rose by any other name smells just as sweet." What is democratic socialism? It is government of the people, by the people, and for
Nina,
the people.
I appreciate
What does that
Shakespeare just as much as you do. I had a role in Macbeth way back in the day, but I am talking about this particular poll, and I want an answer on the fact that the majority of America is not comfortable with a socialist president.
He is a democratic socialist.
Democratic socialist
the majority
president.
of the American the majority of the American people, let me tell you what they're comfortable with. They're comfortable with Medicare for all. They're comfortable with college for all. When you
But
talk
Nina,
to
you
people
keep
across
pivoting.
this country,
You got to
Brooke, as
answer
I
the
have-
question.
No,
I
I'm
hear
not.
you.
I'm
You
answering
are
the question.
pivoting.
I'm answering the question. I might not answer it the way you want me to answer, but I am answering the question.
There is
the
no
question
way
is,
that I
when
have a
you
specific
break
idea
down,
of how you want to answer the question. I'm just trying to get an answer
when
from the
you
American
break
people.
down,
The majority aren't comfortable with democratic socialist.
when you break down democratic socialism and what it really is, that's what I'm saying to you. When you break it down and what it really is, when I talk to people across this country, as I've traveled to many states in this union, about what lifts them up, Medicare for all is that. College for all is that. Canceling student debt is that. So just because some people want to demonize the word does not mean that when you start to have conversations with people about what that means and what Senator Sanders means by that, then they think about it differently. But if you just banty that word about without an explanation and try to demonize it, which that's what the elites are doing, then you get that in that poll. People can swing polls any way that they decide to swing those, and you and I both know that.
Should he use a different word?
No, Brooke, you know what? One of the beautiful things that people love about Senator Sanders, whether they agree with all of his policies or not, he is trustworthy. He is honest. He is consistent. So that's why he's not running from the word. You know what? In the same way that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't run from that word. As we know, before he was assassinated, he indicted this country. Materialism, militarism, poverty, racism. He said we need to do a self-check. So for all of the people trying to make hay over the word, Senator Sanders is not talking about socialism in a traditional sense in terms of what happens in Europe. He never once said that the government should take over the production of all goods and services in this country. But the only thing that he is saying is that there are millions of people in this country who are suffering. And isn't it time that we call out Wall Street? Isn't it time that we call out a pharmaceutical industry? Isn't it time that we call out health care executives who work in a system that really doesn't care where people are dying? That's simply all he's saying.
He is the one, and everyone knew it going into that debate last night. He's the one right now to beat. And so, as we're listening to you very carefully as to what he stands for, let me play some sound, Nina. This is from Mike Bloomberg. This is what he said this morning about the debate.
Look, the real winner in the debate last night was Donald Trump. Because I worry that we may very well be on the way to nominating somebody who cannot win in November. And if we choose a candidate who appeals to a small base like Senator Sanders, it will be a fatal error.
My question is, did Senator Sanders, did the other candidates make a mistake by not going after Trump more last night?
President Trump came up, and as we know, Senator Sanders has been very clear. What we need to defeat President Donald Trump is not somebody that's Trump-like, not somebody who sided with the billionaire class and basically said that the Great Recession in 2008 was caused because the banks were not allowed to redline, not the person who once supported cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We can't have somebody that's Trump-like to go up against President Trump. We need somebody who is the antithesis, Brooke, and Senator Sanders is that. President Trump lies. Senator Sanders tells the truth. President Trump pretends to stand up for the working people. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, he gives a $1.6 trillion tax cut to the wealthiest people in this country. And you know what Senator Bernie Sanders would have done with that same $1.6 trillion? Cancel student debt in this country.
I want to ask you, last question, Nina, just playing it forward. If there isn't a single candidate that hits the delegate threshold, Senator Sanders was the only one, on stage last night, only candidate who said that he believes the person with the most delegates should get the nomination. We all know that's not the DNC rule. So if the convention is contested and superdelegates are needed, what is your campaign's plan of action?
We're going to cross that bridge when we get there. Senator Sanders was very clear last night, the only candidate to stand up to say that the voice of the American people should stand and not superdelegates putting their bodies on the scale. They did that
even though
in 2016.
it's against the
rules.
rules.
That got us. Again, rules can be manipulated, Brooke. We understand this. Rules can be manipulated. Senator was very clear. The voice of the American people should stand. And that's crystal clear. I can't do nothing else with that. That's what he said, and that is the truth. The voice of the American people should stand, and the Democratic Party should not try to go through what we went through in 2016.
Wow, is there a lot to talk about there? There truly is a lot to talk about. So Nina's point there is actually true, and it's correct. And her point is basically labels are useless because when you go based on policy positions, they differ so much from people's labels. And so this is backed by a lot of numbers which show that despite there not being that, majority of the country identifying as liberal, when you go issue by issue, the people of the United States are overwhelmingly left-wing / liberal. So whether you go to, Medicare for All numbers are raising through the roof, and that's like in the United States, that's a hardline position, and that's like a majority in a lot of polls now. But imagine the public option would probably be even higher, right? That's a liberal policy, right? And you talk about raising taxes on the wealthy, free college education, all of this different stuff, raising the minimum wage. These are incredibly popular positions. And so, polling can be manipulated in so many ways. So, for example, like when people were asked whether or not, their approval of the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act had a higher approvability than Obamacare, because people hear the Affordable Care Act, they don't know what's going on, and they're like, oh yeah, I like the Affordable Care Act, it sounds cool. Or less people said they dislike it, right? Because how do you dislike the Affordable Care Act, right? Especially if you don't know what it is. But then you hear Obamacare and you're like, what? I don't like Obama, so I'm just going to be against this. And so that's the problem. Polling can be manipulated as well. But she's right on the money about that, dude, literally that same poll that she's citing, Bernie's winning by a fat margin, and he's literally leading that poll. And so the question you should be asking yourself is basically, there's no question really to be, I guess the question you would ask is, okay, how is he leading a poll in which 2/3 of the country says they don't feel comfortable supporting a Dem Soc? The obvious reason is because policy and labels are different. Now, I'm on the record, and I will continue to state this 100%. I will not back away from this. I don't think that Bernie should have used the term Dem Soc, because he's not a Dem Soc, as you guys know. Democratic socialism is still socialism. All right, there's no different, literally none whatsoever. Bernard is a social democrat. Bernie is somebody who wants a system like that exists in Scandinavia and other European nations. Any of them, literally choose your pick, take your pick. But any of those countries whatsoever. So he's a social democrat. He's not a democratic socialist. And so we could save ourselves all the hoopla and all this garbage amount of time. And then you see CNN and Brooke Baldwin trying to basically trap her into saying what they want her to say. And it's like, we could be over all this crap if he had just used the term social democrat. And I know some of you guys are going to disagree, most of you probably because you're a socialist and you want that term to be normalized more, but you're wrong. He definitely should not have used that term, but I guess it is what it is. But CNN, clearly, what they're trying to do is they're trying to, do this propaganda where they get Nina Turner to make statements that they want her to say, because then it makes their candidate look a certain way. And honestly, it's not new, it's not cool, it's not funny. We see this nonsense over and over again at this point. Every news outlet is doing this nonstop. Seriously. And I really love how Nina Turner said, Bernie Sanders is the antithesis of Donald Trump. That's what we need to say. Bernie Sanders is the antithesis of Donald Trump. He is the kryptonite to Donald Trump. So he's the antithesis of Donald Trump. He's the opposite. As she says, Bernie tells the truth, Trump lies. He's his kryptonite. He's the real populist. Trump is the faux populist. So that's how all of that good stuff works. And then on the whole topic of, they didn't trash Trump enough. Dude, literally the worst strategy you can employ in this election is orange man bad. Orange man bad would be the stupidest way, especially when you're talking about determining who your party leader and nominee is going to be. And then you're just like, look at how shitty the other candidate is. You know how dumb of a process that is to really choose who your nominee is. You need to energize the base. You need to energize human beings, real living beings, okay, to go vote for the Democratic nominee. And the only way you actually energize people is by offering something to them. And so that's why you offer them popular ideas that are going to energize them. That's what Bernie Sanders does, obviously. And so, no, they need to criticize Trump barely at all because it's a waste of time. It doesn't add to anything. And we already know how horrible Donald Trump is. And so it's a waste of time to just basically pander to the crowd about Donald Trump. It's a complete waste. And then at the end, where Brooke Baldwin says it's against the rules to allow, I guess, the majority or the person with the most delegates or the popular vote or whatever, the will of the people standing, The rules are bogus, dude. The rules are really, really bogus. There should be no such thing as a super delegate. There should be no such thing as a super delegate. The fact that something like that exists, that solely exists to override the will of the people in the Democratic Party, is something that the Dem Party should be ashamed about and ashamed of, to be quite frank with you, because they're supposed to be the ones who are all about the popular vote and the EC and are against gerrymandering and voter suppression and all this stuff. And it's like, dude, you're doing the same thing in your own party, and then you wonder why you lose and allow other parties to be like, dude, the rules are bullshit. I don't know how else to put it. I just have to use that word, It's just what it is. Because the rules are unjust, and that is why they need to be changed. Now, thank the Lord that we got superdelegates on the second ballot, because if they were on the first ballot, I don't know if Bernie would be able to win this election, because the propaganda that all these news outlets would be going with is that one of the centrist candidates has a 5 trillion delegate lead after Nevada or after Iowa or after New Hampshire. And so it's just really embarrassing. But Nina Turner did a good job of holding her own here and really pushing back. And, she gave some pretty legit explanations, if I do say so myself. But she always does a great job.